Staff report.
143 building permits. We have the Heritage Tractor rehabilitation permit. Just came in today, I think, Brandy, is that correct, or yesterday? The villas of Smithville are breaking ground up there now. The apartments by the library. Clay Creek is under construction. And Hawthorne rehabilitation is nearing completion. Tons of stuff going on all at once. So if you have any questions about anything in particular, projects in particular, at this point in time, the TIF project is still in kind of limbo, waiting for a resolution. We think there's been a resolution. So at this point in time, the 21st of November is the day we're hoping to have everything full and final on that.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
I have a question. Okay. What do you mean it's in limbo? What can you bring us up to speed on that?
There's been some activity associated with potential lawsuits associated with it. We believe they may have been settled. At this time, all I can say is there's a potential lawsuit, a threat of a lawsuit that may have been settled. We're waiting to see if a settlement agreement comes.
Please excuse my tardiness, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any public comment? No? Okay, so next thing, number 5, street renaming contest presentation.
As you may recall, the city Board of Aldermen several months ago took over Double D from 169 to Liberty, Bridge Street, or the Spur, from Church all the way up to 169 and Owens, and F Highway from the Spur all the way up to the water tower. As a result of that, we're looking at eliminating State Route F or Highway F from the nomenclature and giving it a name and cleaning up several named streets. We provided that to you some time ago with the hope that when our communications coordinator got here, he could have some kind of a contest put together that would involve some community engagement. So I'm going to present, if you haven't met, this is Micah. Micah Joseph, I'm sorry. He is our communications coordinator, and he's got a little presentation and a recommendation to you as to how that might work best.
Commissioners, I feel like we have a unique opportunity today with the possibility of renaming a couple of our local streets. It's a great opportunity to engage some of our residents. In the packet I provided you previously, it does show the proposed areas to be renamed. Highway 169 Spur would become the continuation of Bridge Street. On your sheets, that's shown in red. Where Bridge Street currently continues, it actually runs just past 2nd Street, runs into and becomes, I forget which Woodland Court, for about one cul-de-sac, 5 houses. There has been some confusion in the past with Woodland Avenue and Woodland Court, and so I would propose renaming that stretch of Bridge Street and Woodland Court through use of a public contest, as well as the stretch of F Highway from about Bridge Street or 1st Street in that area all the way up to where it is then going to become, I believe, 172nd, where it runs east to west. So for both of those, I feel like, as I said, a contest is a great way to involve our residents. We would put this out publicly for as long as we feel it would be necessary to come up with enough entries. We would encourage, of course, historical or meaningful names for Smithville residents, something that our longtime residents would recognize as being meaningful, something that our younger residents might find more inspirational, that sort of thing. Of course, we would put limitations on it. There wouldn't be any names allowed that are phonetically similar to current names, reuse of names that have since been retired, that sort of thing. So we would take necessary precautions there. And ideally, of course, to draw in more people, we would offer some sort of prize to the winners. The actual determination of the winner, we can do a number of ways. Staff can make that determination if you'd prefer. Personally, I would much rather see a short list come to you as the administration and have you decide on the basis of representing the people and knowing the history a little better of the town, that you would decide then which names you like best. So that's the long and short of my proposal. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
I do have a question. On the F Highway one, down there on the bottom part of F, where the curve is, where it starts back up northeast, is that gray street there named, that should maybe the rest of F there be named the same thing, and then when that curve goes up, that would be more of a north-south street, or not?
Yeah, let me clarify a couple of things. The gray spot, this is a program, I'm not certain which mapping
That's
system.
actually from the GIS, but it was roads and streets only, so it had very minimal markings.
And one of the issues is associated with First Street in the Housing Authority. We vacated that some time ago. There's a dispute going on between the two property owners as to where that boundary is. It's still showing there. But if you look at F Highway in that area on the GIS, it has First Street and F Highway there, because that's originally the First Street location. Bizarrely enough, if you go past that F Highway First Street on the right to the B&B and turn left, that's First Street again, which lines up perfectly with Second Street. So those are some of the names we're hoping to correct. But the GIS has a very specific description that needs to happen so that they know when we do a vacation of a street or a renaming of a street, there would be a location. My recommendation for the F Highway renaming in this contest would be on the east side of the intersection of Maple and where F Highway sits would be the southern boundary. And then it would go all the way up to the intersection of Pope Lane. It's literally where it turns and starts heading off in a northeasterly direction. Yep. Yep. So it would be on the eastern edge of that intersection. First Street goes across, and then as it starts heading north, that would be the rename area.
And we would make those small corrections to First Street and the like. So.
Yep. And it was originally First Street in Smithville years ago, and it extended on out to where the old racetrack used to be, the horse track, which sat at the end of First Street.
Yeah, Jack, just to clarify, so that would still be First Street from Bridge all the way out to the end of the Housing Authority, correct?
Well, no, it would be to where Maple is, because it's been vacated. There's just, GIS hadn't pulled it off because there's dispute going on between the Housing Authority and the trout lines.
Oh, so that street there has no name currently?
Well, according to us, it was vacated 2 years ago.
Okay.
So the fact that it's showing up is a little disappointing, but it's still showing up.
Okay.
The proper procedures were handled. It went through the Planning Commission, went to the Board of Aldermen. The Board of Aldermen passed a resolution vacating the street, or ordinance, whichever, I don't remember, it was 2 years ago. And we vacated that street, and then the two drive entrances into the Housing Authority were Bogue and Wilson. We vacated those at the same time, simply because they were still considered streets on the GIS, and They were parking lots. We did not want to have that confusion continuing.
So that doesn't cause any issue with 911 services or anything?
This will actually clean up some of that.
Okay.
Essentially, what you're seeing here on the GIS map that was First Street is just parking areas now, and so it's no longer a street recognized by the city.
Yeah. And renaming this will actually give us a little more authority with the GIS. They are oftentimes slow to remove things or change things. If anybody asks them a question, they just put on the brakes because it's not an official map, but from our perspective, that's where people go to get the official word, even though it's not official. The first button you have to click to be able to see it says, oh, by the way, this isn't official.
I have a quick question. On the yellow segment that just goes straight up into that dead end, that's just straight up across Bridge Street and up the hill, right?
Right, it's where the spur turns left and F goes right. It's that one-way portion, and then, yeah. And Bridge Street goes up to...
And that's one with about 5 houses on it?
there are more on that portion of Bridge, but when you get to the end, Bridge Street becomes Woodland Court, and it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And so you have like 121 Bridge Street right next to 1 Woodland Court.
That's
Even though
what
it's on the
causes
same
us
street.
911 issues. Next door neighbors being...
I guess I love the idea of community engagement and naming things.
Sure.
I love it. It's fun. But I wonder if that's a little too little. I like the F highway naming. But those are so small. What if we just took those things and just did the, okay, it's Bridge Street all the way to the end or whatever, or the other.
Well, I think and I don't disagree with you, it is kind of small. However, what we're hoping to do is to actually have Bridge Street, the spur become Bridge Street, so that we can have signage in effect at 169 that says Bridge Street, historic downtown, put a sign up that gives us that link. Here's how you get to the old part of downtown. With that little section, Micah had recommended to me, let's just call it Woodland Court, and he was unaware that we have confusion with Woodland Avenue as well. One's north of the river, one's south of the river. I believe Mr. Sharver's fully aware of the difficulty when you have multiple street names, 196th Court Street, Terrace, and Place in his subdivision. And they all intersect.
Right.
We all need each other now.
Yep, regularly.
They would be great to interview, but whether or not that is a citywide thing.
And what I would suggest, just from a communication standpoint, since one of our big goals is to engage our residents, it seems like a small thing, but the opportunity to set up a piece of history in town for those individuals to be responsible for that is meaningful to them. And so for us as a city, we're looking at the big picture. It's less than a mile, who cares? But for residents, when they can go back through the history books and go, that street was named by my grandpa in honor of this event or this person, that's a big deal. So no matter how small, the process isn't going to take that much longer for us to run a contest than it would for us to generate ideas and just say, okay, which one do we like? So it actually takes some of the stress off of us of coming up with those names, and it gives them something that they're actually a part of. So
The other aspect is that particular, especially Woodland, many of the folks are aged in excess of 70 years old. Probably bought their homes when it was being developed in the 50s. I think 3 of them are still the original owners. So obviously doing a Facebook contest or social media contest is not going to work, but getting a letter to them and having a personal touch with the aged area, I think will probably be better associated with at least that small section. That one is a unique situation. I would agree with you, Jeff. We can, yeah. Yeah.
To have them, those people that are most affected by
Right.
that name.
Given how small it is, I think we've, 7 or 8 homes?
And
one
for
of them's
that-
Ronnie Major. He isn't going to care one way or the other.
For that stretch, that is viable. I still personally feel, just from my perspective and my background, that a contest opens it up so that the whole city can have some, again, that sense of ownership. I absolutely understand the people on that street are going to be most affected. If, since it is so small, there's no reason I can't just go door to door and go talk to each one. And if they want to name it themselves, we can certainly give them that opportunity. But if
Or be the deciding
if they want to be the selection committee, right? And we could still garner ideas through a contest. But as Jack suggests, if the majority of them wouldn't care, then I see no reason to not open it up to the community at large. So.
To be able to do that, perhaps even let them be the selection committee because they're the ones who are most affected by it.
Absolutely.
Or if they aren't the selection committee or those who select it, certainly their choice should be more weighted than some of the other choices we have from other residents. But I think it would be important. I would dare say, and I don't know the makeup of the people who live on that cul-de-sac, but I would dare say that they would come up with some pretty good names if given the opportunity. Now, they may not, or they may not care, but I think we need to provide them the opportunity to do that, and then whatever they would choose, that would be more weighted in whoever makes the final decision.
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely make arrangements for that.
And the time frame of this, we discussed it. It's similar to how the school district named the 3 elementary schools. They had a contest, they did their thing, recommendations came out. We're probably looking early January, having the January meeting where we hear the top 3 or top 5 candidates for one, and depending on the input from the smaller version on the Bridge Woodland Court stuff, potentially have someone here associated with that group if they're interested. But we can certainly present that information, and ultimately, as the recommending body to the board, you all, whatever ultimately it is, it'll be your vote to, they want it that way, yes, or they don't have a decision or don't care, and you guys make a recommendation based upon what the contest reveals. But I certainly agree with Mr. Becker that the FI one was likely going to have a lot more content. The other one is,
Certainly.
a lot of folks don't even know it's a road.
Well, and as it should. But I think for the Woodland Court portion, that should be more weighted for those who actually live on that street. Obviously, F Highway with the number of homes up there and the access, I could see that being opened up to a larger portion of our community to make a recommendation.
And if the commission's amenable to it, as I said, it shouldn't be a problem for me to go visit with those handful of households individually. If they want to participate as a selection committee, I feel like that's probably the best possibility, so that we're not excluding others who might have ideas, but they still have a large part of the say in it. If they decide they don't care, we can open up completely. If they decide they want the absolute final say, then we can limit it to just them. But we'll really put the ball in their court for that.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to propose that the commission give Mr. Joseph direction to go meet with those residents and to do some initial work on that.
And go ahead and start the process of advertising.
Yeah.
We have a small budget available for some prizes. We'll keep it under a couple $100 max on the outside, probably gift cards since it's going to be close to the holiday of some sort, maybe a Price Chopper gift card to encourage more people to actually do it.
Or some of our small restaurants that especially struggle in January. Price Chopper's probably not hurting.
Yeah.
Gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Reported on a 1099.
That would be, yeah, that would be on them as it relates to it, and we may have to identify them. I'll check with the school
Under
district.
$600, I don't think you have to.
Yeah, I'll
I
check
know
with the
there's a
school
dollar
district.
limit on it, I'm just not sure what.
It's under 600. But,
The only reason I'm asking, where I formerly worked,
Yeah.
We'll certainly keep it legal.
We'll make sure we get the paperwork right, whatever they are. That's a good point. I hadn't even thought of the IRS aspects of it, so,
I can look into that too.
yeah, we'll get that. And thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, review of the RFQ for a transportation master plan.
At the last meeting, recommendation and seconded to move forward with getting a complete streets policy, and bringing Mark in at the very next meeting of the Board of Aldermen at the, I don't know what they call it, what we call it at the board meeting, where the chairman, not the chairman, the committee report. The committee reports, that's where Alderman Wilson was able to identify that desire to move forward. The discussion in conjunction with the downtown streetscape project kind of steamrolled into let's get a outside third-party
Consultant.
professional consultant, thank you, I couldn't think of the darn word, to do it. So as a result, that direction came after a conversation with the mayor following that meeting to go ahead and get a RFQ together, RFP together. We looked at it, and nearly everyone I was able to find did it in a different format than an RFP and did it in an RFQ, which is new to us. We haven't done one in the 10 years I've been here. So in order to make it easier, I did what all good government employees do and stole from other governments. So I took Gardner, Kansas, and Fort Worth, Texas. They both had RFQs that were under 6 pages. Both of theirs were for amendments to existing transportation master plans, something we don't have. But they both had, in Fort Worth, it was to update the complete streets policy. Gardner was to add it. So I kind of did a hybrid between the two. Took what seemed to be the most comprehensive portions of what it looks like we need, so that this consultant, whoever it may be, can get us the best product in an RFQ process, so that we simply select. We're not selecting on price, we're selecting on quality, the qualifications, and then based upon those qualifications, we'll do a ranking system. It's in the RFQ itself. 35% based upon whoever's managing the project for the applicant, 25% on their key staff's process, 35% on their approach and understanding of the update and delivery, what we need and how this will happen. And then the remaining 5%, it comes directly out of our city code, that we do give preferential treatment to Missouri businesses and or disabled veterans in accordance with 2 state statutes. One of them requires no less than 3%, so I put it at 5% just to make it an easier math on the rest of it. So those would be how we rank each of the applicants that submit. And then once we get the one that has the best ranking system, we'll start the interview process in negotiating an actual agreement. Presentation to you is to make sure that the scope of services and what the submittal shows is comprehensive enough to get all the answers we need. Like I said, I used update RFQs from Fort Worth and Gardner for this. Had to wing some of the stuff, but the number one scope of services item that I thought was important in this was that we need this entity to manage the public input. We need public input on this, and it would be best if they're managing it but it's got to be in conjunction with this commission. You guys have the general oversight and make recommendations to the board, so anything that we end up developing on this potentially is going to go into the comprehensive plan update that this will basically give us the final leg of the master planning. So I think it's vital that this commission be directly involved in all aspects of it, and then let these some of the folks that I've seen on these, they have public meetings where they got voting little A, B, C, D. They're given a live presentation and people are hitting the buttons and voting, so you can get more anonymous but real time. Here's what everybody likes. So you can kind of get especially with the complete streets and how that process will tie together. A lot of this stuff is going to be what kind of street is the safest for this kind of traffic, and how big of a road do we need if it's going to project to have, 2,000 cars a day or 5,000 cars a day. That's why you need to have this professional consultant, so we can, in order to have the master street plan, we need to know what the anticipated use is going to be. That'll involve these folks getting with Kansas City and where their roads are going, so that we can make sure we're improving in conjunction with Kansas City's plans. Their plans, Kansas City's plans for this area are 35 years old. They've been planning that far out. And now that they've got the sewer, they're going to be coming this way sooner rather than later. Some of them we know, especially on the Clay County side. When we get over on the Platte County side, it's kind of all new to us. We have 2 parcels in the entire city that are located in Platte County, but a large portion of that area is in our future anticipated growth area because it's in the drainage basin of our existing sewers. So the economical side of it would be only annex, and it would widen our base against Kansas City to prevent getting Gladstoned by Kansas City in the future, to protect us for future growth if that's ultimately where we go. So
I have a quick question on timing. While I look forward to getting this moving quickly, the RFQs that I recall usually have about an 8-week lead time for people to develop. Am I mistaken on that?
The ones I had 3 and 4 week. We can extend it however far we need. The question to me is going to be, I'm going to have to do a little more research on how to get the word out to enough of the people nationally, locally, wherever, so that we get the best qualified applicants. If we wanted to bump it another month, and I don't disagree with Mr. Becker on this, it's the holidays. I bumped it to 4 weeks and put it on December because we got a holiday in the middle, Thanksgiving. If we wanted to kick it until we got to January 8th or whatever, then we get out of all the holidays, and it gives that extra time to maybe get more qualified candidates and more applications in so that we can then do it. The other reason was, from my perspective, the sooner we get the deadline to get the applications means the sooner we can start the process and get it going. I don't want this process to linger until June or July. Hopefully we can roll it quick, but a lot of it's going to be their submittal. They're going to say, here's how much time we will take to do it. And that process will be one of the elements we judge as to whether or not they're going to be the one we pick.
Right. By the time we are able to actually get it out there, then it gets seen, then it goes through those companies' processes.
Right.
That feels like, it sure seems like a tight deadline.
And I don't disagree.
With a holiday in the middle.
Yeah.
Well, if we're asking for qualifications, they're probably going to have that stuff ready to go
Sure.
already, because we're not asking for a specific proposal.
No, not a specific proposal, but one of the things that they will be is the anticipated schedule they would need to do this. So they're going to have a pretty good idea of how they've done them in the past. That's the main thing. When it comes to the project manager experience, I'm hoping that we get an applicant with a project manager that's got 5 of them going on now and has done 15 in the past, just like us. That means they've got a tried and true method and they're successful. But we do want them to give us a schedule and what they anticipate how that's going to look. Because if they say, oh, this will take 2 years, we may not want that kind of a.
I don't know that there would be anything wrong with extending it a couple more weeks prior to the holiday, or prior to the new year. Because we're not going to need to take any, we don't need, as this commission, to take any specific action based on the reports we get back.
Right. Ultimately, once we get to the interview process, we're going to try to negotiate the best deal to get us the most stuff on the quickest time delivery schedule. But we're going to base it on these 4 elements: project manager experience, key staff experience, and the approach and understanding of the update and delivery process. And then the Missouri and disabled veterans process. I wanted you all to be able to give me this specific dialogue so that, like I said, I just picked next week to put it out and the 7th to have it come back. If we want to go to a different day than Thursday, the 7th of December.
I agree, Greg. Maybe it doesn't need a whole month. Maybe it just needs a couple
can-
extra weeks just to.
I would lean toward that as well, because even if we give them a couple extra weeks to get the RFQ in, then we will be beyond Thanksgiving. But if we get it before Christmas, then as staff, we would then be able to examine those proposals.
And I would recommend
agree
we
with that.
pick Thursday, the 21st of December, 2 weeks later. It keeps us out of Christmas. Christmas is on the following Monday, so we don't want it to be on the Friday. People may be leaving their businesses for the holidays or going out of town. So if we do it on the Thursday, that's the other reason I didn't want to do it on a Friday. People are wanting to move. So I can just add 2 weeks to this, to the 21st. Issue it on November 10th. Last day of questions is the 21st. The next morning they deliver it. That's usually, they have a courier. We'll just bump it all, deliver the next morning. I don't anticipate a ton of questions on one of these, but if they are, we will create a page on the website that identifies, here are the questions. Somebody asks us a question and we have to review it and answer it. Everyone else will know what that question was and what our answer was, so that it informs them all equally. It's the only way to be fair. So if there's no other changes or recommendations, that's all we have for tonight's meeting.
Any other questions?
Kind of a compliment to I think the street naming process, by intention or a complete street model that we know, so thanks.
That's,
Indeed, everyone.
yeah, that was, and to be quite frank, that was the goal, one of the goals, bringing the position into the fold, and Micah in particular. His degrees in communications let him run and do this stuff. He's doing very well for us so far. So we appreciate that, and hopefully you will see a whole different tone of communication coming from the city, and you probably have already. If you follow Facebook very much, Mike has been very active on that. Last bit, before you do adjourn, there was the thing in the staff report that I forgot to put out. It does impact us somewhat. We have a marketing RFP that is out on the street, and it's more economic development, but it does impact us as it relates to potential construction development. And we also have a new website proposal to update our website, to bring in the branding initiative concepts, that survey results, more of a communication, and as you can see, we've got FaceTime running, Facebook Live, sorry, I always get the two confused, and we've been doing that of late. Micah's got the sound fixed finally, But one of the things we want to have is the ability to have each of these meetings that we do accessible video archived, and bring all of our communication modes together so that you can go to Reddit. You can say what they are. I don't remember.
Our current outlets are Reddit, LinkedIn, Nextdoor, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
So we've got 6 social media activities, all of them moving at the same time, and he's got his computer that has a suite of all of them running at the same time. So every time somebody comments about us, it shows up on his desktop. So we're getting real-time, quick response. The downside is some people comment at 11:30 at night, so we're not as quick on those responses, but we're getting better. So I just wanted to let you know all that's going on. We've got a lot of balls in the air, and obviously we will be busy. Once the meeting is done, there are all of you unrelated to Planning Commission, other than your leadership aspects. I will be asking you a couple of questions individually following the meeting about another initiative that the city's proceeding on, Communities of Excellence. I may need some assistance. You guys would be the kind of people that we would need in that process.
Second. Somebody second it? Okay. Adjourn.